warp speed. Living with an Audi R8 Coupe V10 Plus. Month 4 with an Audi R8 V10 Plus, pokey boot, perfect poise. The R8 continues to ace the everyday car brief, with the exception of one inconveniently sized chink in its armor, a shoebox-sized boot. While a 911, or even a McLaren or Ferrari 488, can pack a surprising amount of gear into their frunks, you'll struggle to fit more than one, very, squashy bag in the R8. The price you pay for packaging an extra set of driveshafts, I suppose. Arguably worth it for the Audi's winter-beating traction, though. Out of slow corners the front tires claw into the tarmac like a rock climber's fingertips finding a handhold, and fill you with confidence on the sort of bumpy, slippery B roads that would bring most other supercars out in a cold sweat. At slower speeds it's beginning to sound like a family of squirrels have moved into that boot. Sometimes it sounds like it might be the suspension bushes, sometimes maybe the intersection where the dashboard meets the windscreen, but something's definitely getting squeaky when the going gets bumpy. I spoke to another journalist recently who's logged plenty of miles in another new R8 and they reported similar squeaks over speed bumps. While you'd probably forgive that in a harder core supercar, the Audi's premium standpoint and otherwise luxurious cabin make it harder to overlook. Squeaking it might be, but our R8's now no longer beeping as the curious case of the panicking parking sensor, see month 2, is closed. Turns out the number plate had come partially unstuck, just far enough to catch the sensor's beam. Month 3 with an Audi R8, it never feels under the weather. Whatever your mood, no matter how tricky the conditions, seems the Audi R8 has it nailed. Spoiler sport. Generously proportioned carbon fiber rear wing is fixed in place as standard on the V10 Plus version. I prefer the cleaner, unspoiled, pun intended, styling on the standard R8, but I've been glad of the extra downforce through the foxhole during my, completely imaginary, laps of the Nürburgring. A split personality kinda car. Rocket booster buttons sprouting from the wheel include drive select modes for suspension, throttle, steering and gearbox, from comfort to dynamic. Flag switch shortcuts straight to performance, which also relaxes the stability control. In comfort it feels like driving an A4, in performance a GT3 car. The contrasting character is extraordinary. Looks great when it's dirty. The Bart Simpson spec Vegas yellow paintwork is growing on me. All the more so for a smudge of wintry muck. A supercar is somehow cooler if it looks like it gets used properly, don't you think? And winter is the Audi R8's forte. Few cars, super or otherwise, are as confidence-inspiring on slimy roads. Speed bumps? No problem. Our previous Lamborghini Huracan Lawnmower needed an onboard lifting system to avoid skidding its nose, but with a 25mm loftier ground clearance the R8 does fine without. Those carbon ceramic brakes, standard on the V10 Plus, provide eye-opening, and eye-popping, stopping power, but are annoyingly grabby when cold. Month 2 with an Audi R8, initial impressions. 1 month in, running in rains have been unshackled from our R8's V10. Fast? Enough to make your neck and your face muscles hurt. Assuming you can actually find the space to use it. The R8 does some of its most impressive work when you're pootling, though. It's as easy to drive as an A3, and similarly comfortable at a cruise. A couple of niggles so far, the dual-clutch gearbox is surprisingly jerky at low speeds in manual mode, and the front left parking sensor keeps crying wolf. Bit unnerving when parking something 1.9 meters wide. Month 1 with an Audi R8, the introduction. Everyday supercar. A contradiction in terms, surely. Like diesel hot hatch or, ahem, our sister title Practical Classics. But if any car fits the supercar for every occasion brief, it's the Audi R8, all-wheel drive for all weathers, windows you can see out of, and the plushest of cabins with seats and inviting crossbreed between racing buckets and overstuffed armchairs. It even has a decent turning circle. If the R8 truly can be an everyday supercar, we'll soon know, for this one really is going to be driven every day. Perhaps concerned about the imminent withdrawal symptoms I'll suffer when my season running the Radical SR1 comes to an end, The editor has compassionately placed the R8 under my care for its time with us. But it'll spend many of its days based here at Car HQ, so keeping its keys to myself is an unlikely dream. There's no longer such thing as a V8 engined R8, the latest generation driven solely by the same wondrous naturally aspirated 5.2-liter V10 as the closely related Lamborghini Huracan, with either 533 bhp as standard or 602 bhp in V10 Plus trim. Our R8 is the latter, 15,000 pounds more than the standard model with carbon ceramic brakes, fixed rear wing and a 40 kilograms weight reduction to go with its extra 69 bhp. Since the standard V10 Plus sport suspension is better suited to smooth European tarmac than Blighty's blemishes, we've added variable magnetic ride dampers, 1,600 pounds, and swapped the uncompromising buckets usually fitted to Plus models for regular sports seats, with pneumatic bolsters, 475 pounds. We have splashed out on the sport exhaust, 1,800 pounds, the better to appreciate that V10 to full effect, a larger 73-liter fuel tank, 100 pounds, and the 650 pounds driver assistance pack, cruise control and reversing camera, both, stingily, not standard, along with £3K's worth of laser headlights, complete with a moderately concerning radiation warning sticker inside the boot. We've deliberately avoided the feedback blunting variable rate dynamic steering option, and I rather wish we hadn't spec'd Vegas yellow paint, although R8 orders suggest many customers disagree. Together with a few other garnishes, that adds up to £149,645, still cheaper than a Huracan. If the 10-year-old me knew I'd one day be able to drive a bright yellow V10 supercar nearly every day, I'd probably have spontaneously combusted with excitement. Can the R8 live up to a lifetime's anticipation? So far I'm undecided. When we ran a Lamborghini Huracan on the long-term fleet for 6 glorious months last year, I fell completely under its spell, yet on first impressions I'm struggling to feel quite so passionate about the R8. Which is silly, because they're essentially the same car, and if anything the R8 setup gives it more involving handling. But I'm not convinced by the styling. There's something oddly unbalanced about the thickening shoulder line dividing the side intakes, and I can't get the notion out of my head that it looks like a supercar on its way to a fancy dress party wearing an Audi TT costume. More fundamental than that though, there's something a little aloof about its character. It feels almost too polished, somehow, not raw enough to be truly exciting. Does that mean I'm shallow and easily swayed by looks and charisma? Probably. It's early days, though. The R8's arrived with only 112 miles on the clock, so self-imposed running and rains are bridled to the V10, and the lengthiest journeys I've been able to take on so far have been traffic jam-riddled motorway slogs. More thorough driving observations another time, then, but the R8 is clearly a multi-stringed bow. Its ride comfort would shame many saloon cars, although it has an oddly springy gait at times and comfort mode, like the subtly bouncy feel of a trampoline beneath your feet, for starters, and the seats likewise. There's no trace of the symptoms of a condition every Monte Carlo-based chiropractor must be familiar with called Lamborghini back. The V10 sounds serene on the move, although the theatrical, window-rattling burst of revs that accompanies every early morning cold start isn't always appreciated by my housemates. So, to recap the hypothesis, an R8 V10 can function as day-to-day transport. But if so, can it still thrill enough to be considered a supercar in its truest sense? We've got the next few months to valiantly endeavor to prove and/or disprove both points. It's going to be fun finding out how we specified our Audi R8. Magnetic ride dampers, 1,600 pounds, standard V10 Plus sport suspension a little abrupt, continuously adapting adaptive dampers smooth things over. Gloss carbon engine bay trim, 2,950 pounds, extravagant, yes, but one of the last great naturally aspirated engines needs showing off properly. Sound and comfort pack, 3,450 pounds, extra leather for seats, doors and dash, pneumatic bolsters and a 550 watts B&O hi-fi to outzout the V10. LED headlights with laser light, 3,000 pounds, laser diodes bring more daylight on high beam. A supercar with lasers, nothing cooler, surely.